of you in the back can hear okay. We don't have any kind of microphone system today. If you need us to talk louder, just give us a little symbol of some sort and we will attempt to do that. Although a little disclaimer, this is our third kind of large group presentation of the day, which is a lot for us counselors. I mean, we're used to the one-on-one kinds of things, not the up in front of people kinds of things, so bear with us. It's good to see so many of you here. I'm hoping that part of the reason why you're here is because you were here in the fall for the fall installment of Junior Parent Night. And it was so helpful that you just knew that you had to come back to this session, or maybe you were just downstairs at the PSEO presentation and you thought, I gotta follow these people and see what they say next. So either way, thank you for coming. If you were not able to make it to the fall session, so we used to do Junior Parent Night information in one big long presentation about this time of the year, maybe a little bit earlier. And I can't even remember what made us split it into two shorter segments to make the information a little bit more timely, but we have really liked it and it's been well received by families and parents. So if you were not able to make it to the fall session and you're thinking, oh, what did I miss? We are recording this presentation we did in the fall as well, and we have posted it to our guidance website. So if you just go to the high school homepage, under academics, you'll find guidance, and towards the bottom of that page, any large group student presentation or parent presentation, we will just post to the website. That way, if you need to refer back, or if you weren't able to make it, or if you know a friend who wasn't able to make it, you can refer them there for that information. It's kind of hard to believe that the next time we invite you in as a large group family, it's going to be senior year, when college applications have already started and we're talking about financial aid information in October of next year. All right, so again, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Tina Campa. I'm one of the 10th through 12th grade counselors. I work with students at the beginning of the alphabet. Ms. Bauman is the other 10th through 12th grade counselor. She works with students at the end of the alphabet. Ms. Simon's at the top. She worked with your students in 8th and 9th grades.
We were definitely 10 years younger in those
photos.
Yeah,
we don't change those photos. In terms of what we're hoping to talk about tonight, so we're going to start out with some kind of housekeeping, sort of immediate things that are happening for students and families to be aware of or take advantage of. Then we'll spend a good chunk of time on just the college application process. What are the different types of applications? What are the different deadline options? What should we be doing over the summer to get ready for it? What is the timeline? Like, when should we be submitting applications? And then we'll end with a kind of a preview of what to expect for senior year. So in terms of immediate reminders, some of this information is repeat from what we said in the fall, simply because there's still a lot going on that you could take advantage of if you didn't get as far into that process as you would like. If you remember back to that fall session, we said that kind of the main post-secondary planning goal is really to gather as much pertinent information as possible so that you can start narrowing down your choices, with the goal being that students will walk into the building at the beginning of senior year with a reasonable list of options that they're considering for after high school. So if applying to a four-year college is their plan, maybe it's a list of 10 to 12 schools that they're still considering at that point. And really the best way to narrow it down to that is to just expose yourself to as much information as you can, and then start to weed out the stuff that you know that you don't want to do or isn't a good fit for you, so that you're working with a reasonable list of what is going to work for you. College admissions testing. So it used to be, my first 20 years, I felt like it was just the same old information that we said about ACT and SAT. And wow, have things changed in the last 3 years in terms of how it's offered, when it's offered, how it's used in the college application process. It does still exist. There are still ACT and SAT tests. We're going to go into a little more detail on one of the later slides about the options that are available for students to take those tests. But basically, students would register for either of those tests other than the district ACT, which we'll talk about in a second, on their own through the testing websites that are linked into this presentation up there. These are tests that students can take multiple times if they want to, either in terms of trying to improve their composite score Or ACT is doing something now that they call a super score, where they will take the highest subject score from multiple test dates and then kind of have a super score composite that's available. Colleges are still trying to figure out how they want to use that information, but it is something that ACT does. In each case, when a student registers for the test, there's an opportunity to send those scores to colleges free of charge at that time. So through the registration process, with ACT specifically, students can choose up to 4 colleges who would be able to eventually have access to those scores without them having to pay any additional fees to do that. If they end up applying to a school and need an ACT score to be a part of that application and didn't do it through the registration process, then they log on to their ACT website and they send an additional score report, but there's a $12 or $14 charge that goes with that. So every score per school that you send it to. So we strongly encourage students to take advantage of that free option during the registration process. I think oftentimes students are like, I don't even know what my score is. I don't want it sent to colleges. Colleges don't care if they have access to a student's ACT score unless a student ends up applying there and now indicates that they would like that ACT score to be a part of their application for consideration. So it's not like they need to worry about it going there and they look bad in that college's eyes. They still have control over whether or not that score is used. It just means that they don't have to pay $14 later for the college to be able to access that score if they decide they want it to be used. In terms of college rep visits, so we have we have representatives from different colleges. I'm sometimes amazed how far away they will come, that will either come here in person or set up a virtual meeting with students to learn a little bit more about their specific institution. We had a lot happening in the fall, and then there's always a little lull here in the middle of the year as they're kind of focused on reviewing applications, and then things are going to pick up again in the spring. And so we met with your students during WIN just last week, I think, and we strongly encourage students to take advantage of these. It's convenient, it's close, it's low pressure. They don't have to do anything to prepare for these meetings. And you don't even have to be specifically interested in that school. If you're just at the beginning stages and you're trying to kind of gauge what's the difference between a public school and a private school, or a 2-year school and a 4-year school, this is an easy way to do that. The way that we communicate out who's coming when so that students know is through our morning announcements program. It's on the weekly Thursday newsletter that goes home to families. And then Mrs. Lobby also posted on Schoology for students to see through the messaging center. So we do try to get that information out as much as possible, and we just encourage students who either are interested in a specific school or just haven't even really started the process to take advantage of that as a way to get started. There's also virtual college fairs that are available. So I practiced this before. This burned me in my previous presentation, but I'm going to try to click on this. So it's a hyperlink that's available in the presentation that will take you right to the website that talks about these virtual college fairs. In my opinion, if there's one good thing that's come out of COVID related specifically to college admissions, it's that they have done such a good job beefing up their virtual tools that are available to students, which I think is perfect if you don't have the means or the time to go and visit all of these colleges, especially if they're far away. So if you get to this website, it's going to list all of the fairs that are still available. And then if you were to click on one, let's just say you're interested in the Sunday one, you're all going to be home anyway. If you click on it, this is where you would eventually register. And you will notice that when you click on the specific link, it's going to tell you exactly which colleges are represented at that particular college fair. So you can either search by state or institution name, or you can get a printable copy of the schools that are going to be there. And then basically you're signing up for individual sessions with the colleges that you're most interested in that are represented at that fair. And then I think it's also kind of helpful or nice that they do some kind of more general sessions with different topics that might be of interest to students and families. And so you're also able to register for some of those more general topics. All right, let's see if we can do this. little bit more about ACT testing. You've gotten a lot of information about it. Maybe you've had a chance to read through all of it, maybe not. There's plenty more to come. But basically there's two different ways that a student can take the ACT, which is by far the more popular of the two college admissions tests for students that attend school here based on the types of colleges that they go to. One is going to be the district ACT. That's a one-time option for students to take it at a lower cost during the school day. And this year that date is going to be Tuesday, March 8th. It starts at 8:20. Only juniors who are taking that test are going to be in the building at that time. All other students are learning from home that day as a way to keep it as kind of safe and secure in terms of a testing environment as possible. Busing runs like it normally would, so all juniors have a way to get here. Busing runs in the afternoon as it normally would, so all juniors have a way to get home. And there was an option to sign up for a boxed lunch, so even if you say, I'm going to leave after the test because I have my own car, you can pick up a boxed lunch on your way out if you want to. So we try to make it as easy and convenient for students as possible. The big difference this year is that test is going to be an online test. So students are going to need to bring their school-issued Chromebook that day to be able to take it on the TestNav testing browser, which is a lockdown browser. Question?
Is the writing portion in this one?
Yes, this is
So everyone does the writing portion?
correct. Yes,
Okay.
it is a full official ACT plus writing test.
No opt-out of the writing?
No opt-out of the writing.
It's not what I mean, I've done
No,
schools
the
before.
writing score doesn't impact the composite
Yeah.
score. It has its own subset of scores, but yes, it is. We have to choose one or the other when we sign up for the district test, and because we want to at least have that option available to students, we do the plus writing.
And if they're using their own, math books this year?
Then they're going to have to get a loaner, a school-issued Chromebook to use on test day, and we'll have a set of those available for students. Yep.
Will there be a makeup day for the kids who are going to stay for that?
Good question. Yes, there are a lot of those students this year. Congratulations to all of them. So there's a makeup test date scheduled for the following Tuesday, the 15th, at the same time. I just haven't worked out the details on where we're going to be doing that testing yet. Still working on that.
In this building.
In this building. It will be here, but that day there will be other classes going on, so we just have a little more coordinating to do there. There's going to be a pre-administration session on February 24th. It'll be during the day, during one of our WIN sessions. We're going to lock all juniors in to take care of that right during the school day. It's a process they have to go through prior to online testing, where they're setting up their ACT account, or if they've already set up an ACT account, they're attaching this district ACT to that account, so that all of their scores end up in the same place on that online account. And we walk the students through that process during the day in a WIN session. There is a $20 fee that goes along with this test. I think it's normally $58.50 or something for this same type of test on one of the national test dates. The district covers the remainder of that cost. It is something that's paid through the Skyward account, so you likely have seen that ACT fee on your Skyward account through fee management. If not, if you could kindly pay that before February 18th, that would be great. If your family qualifies for free and reduced lunch, you would not have seen that because there's automatic fee waivers that kick in that case. So if you have any questions about the fee part of it, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. And then these were the items that students were told to bring, but again, I just want to make sure that everyone understands there's no personal devices that can be used for this test because of the test security. So we will have school-issued Chromebooks. Well, students are encouraged to bring their own school-issued Chromebook, but if they don't have one of those that day or something's wrong with it, we'll have a set so that every student can still test. Photo ID. Photo ID technically isn't required for the district test, but it is required for all of the national tests, so we like to kind of get the students in the habit of doing that. Approved calculator, there's a link on the website, and we'll go over all this information with your students about the calculators that are allowed on the ACT. So just double checking that list to make sure. And there is an online calculator as a part of the online test, so if a student doesn't bring their own calculator, they have access to everything they need right through the online test. And then food and drink to be accessed during breaks. We can't let students keep it in the room with them, but it'll be right outside the room and they'll be able to access it during their 2 breaks that they have. Yes?
regards to the students going to DECA, do you want us to still pay the fee online now by the 18th, even if they're not taking it on March 8th?
Please do. If you can pay the fee, and we're gonna have them go through that same pre-administration session because all those same steps have to happen, no matter if they're testing on the 8th or the 15th. So yes, ideally, we'd like to get it all done at the same time. It's just the test that will be taken a week later. Good question.
What, are they able to take the one on the 15th if they're taking the one this weekend as opposed to one?
Yes. Yep, every
On the
student,
15th, you said. Oh, is-
or the 8th, or unless it's a DECA student.
She's
Yes.
right, sorry, my apologies. I just wasn't
So,
sure.
every student has the option to take the district ACT, no matter how many times they choose to take it on one of the national test dates. Yep. So on the other side are those national test dates that are available. So again, if students are wanting to take it more than once, they only have that one opportunity through us, through the district ACT. But they could sign up for any of the national test dates. Again, they register themselves for those dates. The dates are listed up there. I will say that on June 11th, we are a test site here at the high school. So if they want to take it here at the high school again, they would want to sign up for that June 11th test date, and that one is a paper pencil version. It's not an online version. So again, if a student's like, I'm worried about the online version, I feel more comfortable with the paper pencil, I want to do it both ways, they could sign up for the June 11th national test date here at the high school, and it would be on paper pencil.
Where's the April 2nd and July 16th?
There's a whole bunch of test center options in the area. So when you go to register, it'll list all of the options that are available based on the zip code that you input.
One is Oronoat, is second.
Or-
How quickly the test results come back?
Yep.
Typically?
In the directions, we are to read 5 to 8 weeks, you will get your scores back. I believe because of the online nature of everything now, it's more like a 2 to 3 week turnaround most times. So students should be able to see their scores relatively quickly to decide if they want to
Right.
retake it on one of those dates.
But it is why we bumped out our test from April to June, because we just knew there wasn't enough time between that state test date, or district test date, and the next opportunity, so.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback about that.
Yeah.
So we pushed our national test date here late to allow more time for that. Any other questions about ACT, district or otherwise? All right,
I do have a question.
okay.
I heard that those tests, it says register a month before, but I heard some of them fill up and
They
like
did.
kids have to go a long distance.
South Dakota, Wisconsin, all of them,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So if you do plan on taking it again, sign up, but if you sign up and they do really well this time and they decide not to take it,
You don't
it's
get.
okay, you already paid, but you just, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to go and take it. Okay.
Wouldn't have to, you just don't get reimbursed.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
There's one in the middle here, sorry.
Yes.
So students that are juniors now, you know, they have another semester, is it advantageous to have another semester under their belt before they take the ACT?
You know, anytime during second semester of junior year is generally kind of maximizing what they can learn before they take the test, but getting scores in a timely manner to be able to start the college admissions process. So there are, in addition to the national test dates that are listed up here for the rest of this school year, there are some dates in the fall, early fall, that students can choose to take as well. September and October typically can be done before most college application deadlines come into play.
It's a funny thing, it's shifted a little bit, you know, when we started in this, Ms. Camp and I started the same year, the majority of our juniors took it in October of their junior year, because it took like 90 days to get your scores back, and you know what I mean, and then they wanted to know if they should practice more, take more retakes, and so you needed to plan out 9 months ahead of time. Now that we get our scores back in 8 to 10 to 14 days, there's a little bit more leeway where we're encouraging kids to push it out more, which is why we're doing it in the spring now. But you will, I think the biggest reason to have that gap between spring and fall, not only for admissions, but also if you want to do some prep and practice over the summer to take it again in September or October, because you still would get it in time for college admissions if you waited that long. But it's a sweet spot, because also there's that loss of learning in June, July, and August, so you don't want to take it then, so like it's a game that we spend way too much time on, so.
We do spend a lot of time on the ACT, and its role in college admissions has changed a little bit in the last couple of years. So a lot of colleges, I would say the majority of colleges probably have not made official statements yet about how they're going to use, whether they're gonna require or not require, whether they'll consider or not consider ACT scores for current juniors by the time they're filling out applications. I will say that the University of Minnesota has already made an official statement, and they are gonna remain test optional, which we'll cover in just a second. And the state colleges in the area have said for current juniors and sophomores, they're gonna remain test optional. So slowly, schools are starting to make official statements about all of that. But I would say the majority this year and moving forward are likely gonna be test optional for a little while, which means that students can choose to have their scores considered as a part of their admission or choose not to. Obviously, if they choose not to, then there's gonna be more weight put on some of the other traditional factors that schools are looking at. So rigor of course load, GPA, those types of things. Generally speaking, if you go to a college website, you can find information somewhere about like current admitted freshman class, what was the average ACT score for those students that we admitted to our institution. And we often say, use that benchmark to help you determine if you should submit your score or not to the colleges that you're looking at. If you fit kind of where their averages or above, then it's only gonna help you to submit an ACT score. If you're below that, then maybe you're better off not submitting that, especially if you feel like you have a strong transcript, if some of those other things speak well for you. I think I covered most of the information on that side. In terms of timeline, like when things open up and become available, when you should be thinking about different things. So again, right now, it's really just gathering information, college rep visits, campus visits, virtual fairs, whatever it is that's gonna help you to start kind of weeding out and narrowing down your list. End of junior year, this was something we did with juniors last week. But checking your transcript to make sure that all of the high school graduation requirements are accounted for and that the courses that they've registered for senior year are setting them up well for their plans for after high school. Oftentimes by senior year, there aren't a lot of requirements left in terms of high school graduation. Now the focus has shifted to, but what is gonna set me up to be successful in the type of college environment that I'm looking to apply to or make me look good in that application process. So we did print out a transcript for all students as well as a graduation checklist. Both of those items are available to you as families through Skyward. Under the report card portfolio tab is the transcript, and on our website is the graduation requirement checklist. So if for some reason they didn't run home to show you that information and you're kind of wondering about it, you have access to that online as well. In terms of summer, it's a lot of pre-application stuff. Most college applications don't open up until later in the summer, but you can be researching college websites and looking at what they require as a part of the college application and start some prep work on that. If they require a personal statement or an essay, maybe you start to narrow down a topic and get some drafts going. If they're gonna require recommendations or letters of recommendation, maybe it's starting to think about who I should ask to do that, or filling out the senior information sheet that I'm gonna hand to those teachers when I ask them to write me that letter of recommendation. Ms. Bauman will go into some of that. But there's a lot of stuff that can be done over the summer when schedules are maybe a little less hectic, just to get ready, because once the beginning of senior year comes, things happen quickly. Some of these application deadlines sneak up on you before you even know it. So taking advantage of that summer is a good idea. September, October, it's really just completing applications, getting those transcripts sent in, getting letters of recommendation, revising the essays, getting the actual application submitted. On October 1st of next year is when the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, will become available for this graduating class. That's the need-based financial aid process. So again, that'll open up on October 1st, and right around that same time, we will invite you all back for a financial aid information night where we invite a financial aid professional to come in and talk about what that process is. So if you haven't been through it recently or at all, it would probably be a good thing to be a part of. And then November, January, it's kind of a waiting game. it's, you know, hopefully by then, most things have been submitted and you're waiting to hear back either about admissions or about financial aid packages so that you can make some final decisions. Whoops.
Okay, I'm gonna jump
Just you?
in. Boy, I'm a talker and we have done ourselves on tonight. So, I'm gonna kind of I really feel like this is just like, this will get you 80% of the way there in the college application process between now and the next deadline for your student. So I understand that this might not attach to some context in your heads right now because it's all new information, but the video will be there. Come back and watch just this portion to help kind of get your child started. Again, I think this is general enough information to get you going, and then from there, there might be some specific, you know, college-specific things that we want to talk about. But again, kind of like Tina just said, you know, fall is really focusing on visits and applications. I would love for students to, like, we have a 4-day weekend coming up, not next weekend, but the weekend after. So we have like, students who have school for 4 days. That'd be a great time that even if your child is set on going to school out east, well, how will you know if a school out east is a good fit if that's the first time you've ever seen a school? So go to an Augsburg, go to a St. Thomas, go to Macalester, go to a U, you know, set up some campus visits and get your feet on those campuses to see what speaks to them as far as a campus goes. You might be surprised. I was astounded I have a niece who's a freshman, I was astounded by what spoke to her at a campus, because for 18 years, I had assumed that she was really looking for something different. But once she actually got on the campus, she was like, ooh, I like this better. It ended up being super, super tiny. So I think that's, the only way you're gonna do that is by kind of getting your feet on the ground at a campus. So we really encourage families to do that during this spring time, especially since there are kids on campus. It's nice to be able to sit in on a class, grab food at a cafeteria, see what it's like to have kids moving around a campus and things like that. Again, and then after that application process, the FAFSA becomes important. A few quick details about the FAFSA. I know that the ongoing rumor is like, we'll never get any money. You're right. If you're only gonna think about free money, you're correct. It's very hard to get grants these days. It is, and it's getting harder. That being said, you might find as a family that if your money is in savings and you are able to make 16% off the market or off a savings account or something like that, you might want to keep your money in an earning account and then take out the loans that you're qualified for at 0%. So you kind of need to figure out how to leverage your money better by possibly applying for financial aid. The FAFSA is often the thing they also use to consider you for any institutional aid. So sometimes school just wants you to do the FAFSA just to see if you qualify for any scholarships on their side, not federal money, but they use that those FAFSA numbers in order to see if you qualify for any financial aid from them. Just a little comment about the CSS profile. Again, this probably won't ring a huge bell right now, but a lot of smaller private schools, outside of the Midwest especially, require the CSS profile, which is a for-pay application for money. Irony, anyone? And so you fill in additional information. So what we know about the FAFSA is that the actual algorithm for financial aid hasn't changed since 1964. Awesome. The only adjustments they've made to that algorithm is the cost of living adjustments that we've experienced since then. So think about how much families and incomes and all the way we spend money and invest money has changed. The FAFSA really doesn't speak to that. So some schools now require the CSS profile, which is an opportunity for you to provide more information about your financial situation, and it adds a little bit of gray or a little bit of nuance to what you can communicate to a school, so that they know how to respond financially through endowment money or grants or things like that. National scholarships. So a lot, always, how do we get the money? How do we get the money? Where are the scholarships? So this is kind of the process. National scholarships. So if you work for General Mills and your company offers a scholarship, or your grandpa is a veteran and they have a scholarship, all those types of bigger, more regional or national scholarships are happening between probably October and right now, okay? So that's when you are applying for some of those national ones, the Coca-Cola, the Nordstrom, the NFL, those kind of bigger ones. But don't forget those national ones to have national pools you're fighting against for that one prize. So I always tell students to kind of allocate their time wisely. If they already have an essay written for that scholarship application, maybe do it, but don't spend 8 hours on one that we're competing against a million kids. Then in the winter, we start to pick up a little bit. So right now, the current seniors are in scholarship mode. So our one of our most generous local scholarship applications is due next week. So that's where you see a lot of seniors working on right now, is that, it's called the Colonel Brown, it's through the West Tonka Foundation. But that one is happening through next week, and then on the 24th, right, we go to meet with the seniors?
Next week,
Oh,
17th.
yeah, whatever. On the 17th, we present to the seniors the local scholarship application process. So it doesn't start until that day. So there is nothing that any students that are seniors right now should be doing to apply for scholarships at a local level. But I don't know if you've ever seen the West Tonka News or the newspaper. That local scholarship process is what we are talking about when you see those, Instagram posts and the tweets and the things like that in the pack. And that is only for current students. So the local scholarship program, which is extremely generous, one of the most generous ones I've ever witnessed, is only for our current seniors, and it starts in February. The applications usually due mid-March, and they find out in April if they're gonna get a scholarship in May. So really, no time to panic if your child does not apply for a scholarship and it's December, but the FAFSA is different. You should always be applying for that FAFSA as soon as it comes out. The taxes that are due here in April are the taxes that will be used for the FAFSA next October. So your 2021 taxes. So if you have those on top of your stack or something, keep them out there so that you can use them. So just to keep in mind what makes the application complete. Again, we're going to go nuts and bolts here on these last two slides. An application is complete if you actually submit the application, meaning any essays or statements that are required. You pay the application fee. This is a warning, we don't want students applying to 15, 16 different schools because often application fees can be $45 to $65 per application. We have seen a lot of schools go free application to get their numbers back up. They've seen a little drop, so they have dropped some of those application fees, but a lot of schools have not. And so it can be expensive. So sometimes when you do a tour, they'll give you a little code that you can use to get a free application when you go. And so that's kind of why we encourage you to get on campuses and things like that. But we really want students to be closer to that 5-6 range when they're applying to schools because it's expensive. You got the application fee, you got a transcript fee if that's involved. All of a sudden you have a tuition deposit, $500. You have a housing deposit, $75. And you've paid $1,000 and your child hasn't even gone to school yet. And so, so it's just something to keep in mind that is also part of the process. Transcripts are sent either through our transcript delivery service, which makes it official, or if they use the Common App, we upload one to the Common App. I'll go over that in just a second. And then if they want to include standardized test scores, the ACT or SAT, in their application, they need to send them directly from their ACT account. We do not have jurisdiction over those scores, so that needs to come from their information to that school. But once all those things arrive at the college, a virtual file is created and everything keeps dropping in there. So you don't have to worry if the application gets submitted first, the fee gets paid 2 weeks later, and the transcript gets sent in the middle there. It really doesn't matter. It all ends up in the same spot. So I think this has been one of the biggest learning curves for families who have parents who maybe went to college in the 90s, I would say. That would be me. We have so many different decision deadlines that are available to students right now. So I just think it's because we talk a lot about that and because colleges talk to you like you know what it's talking about, I just like to go over these. So rolling decision basically means you apply as soon as the application opens, they review your application as soon as it gets in, and we give you a decision as soon as we're ready. So for some schools, rolling decision, Iowa State, 48 hours. Do you meet the formula? You're in. Do you not? You're out. Mankato State, 10 to 12 days. And University of Minnesota is kind of a rolling / regular decision, but rolling just means we're continually reviewing applications, we're continually sending out letters. We can send out 5 acceptance letters a day, or we can send out 50, but we're continuing to review, like rolling. Regular decision means a college gives you an actual deadline, and we will review them in no particular order within a time period and let you know. So the U of M, you'll find out, they will guarantee a date in which they'll return it to you. But if you automatically meet their standards, they'll kind of roll you in and you'll get an application decision early. However, if you don't get one early, it means that they're holding you on that pile to be reviewed with everyone else's. And the reason why they hold on to your application to review within a window of time is they want to compare you to the other applicants and then choose the best applications out of all those. Early action is not to be confused with early decision. These are the two biggest things that get confused. Is early action just means I apply by a date, I get an answer by a date. University of Minnesota, I apply by November 1, they guarantee me an answer by January 1. Okay, that's early action. you act early, we act early, I always say to kids. Early decision is different. Early decision means we will give you a decision early if you apply early and it's binding, meaning you have to go there. The only reason why you would not be able to, or not go there is if you find out your financial aid package does not meet your need. And most schools who guaranteed demonstrated need offer early decision. Schools who did not guarantee demonstrated need do not offer early decision. So you might find that you'll never find the U of M to do ED, but a lot of private schools who have bigger endowments will do ED. And ED can be a really, really nice tool because it can allow a student to say, you're my number one. If you accept me, I'm there. And colleges, they're a business. So they're excited to hear like, oh, you wanna go there, you're in? That's great, we'll take you, and now we've agreed to, you're coming in and we're gonna have you. But early decision is tough because usually those early decision deadlines are October 15th-ish, and that feels early for a lot of kids to decide exactly where they're going. So ED should only be used for your child if they are absolutely 100% positive that they're going. In the selective admissions process, for example, I know the numbers for Brown right off the top of my head. They only accept about 6% of kids through their regular decision process, but they accept 30% of their ED applicants. So they get the vast majority of their pool, for their freshman class through that ED process. So, so that's a way to kind of get that secured. I've gone on and on, but it's like I probably get 100 emails on those two differences every fall from parents. So I kind of like to hit it hard. There's just not a lot of parents here, so. Letters of recommendation. So I think now's a really good time to encourage your child to think about what are you hoping to study and who do you think could comment on that in a college letter of recommendation. So for example, if your child's hoping to be an engineer, we would hope that they are connecting well with their math and science teachers, so that math or science teacher, especially this junior year, could comment on their ability to do well in an engineering program in college. Not all schools require letters of recommendation, and so we really ask you and your child to do their research first. Most often, they'll just fill out a form on the Common App and maybe add in a letter to that. But not every school requires it. Teachers and counselors, we do this on Sunday afternoon while watching the Green Bay Packers. It's not part of our workday, so we really just ask that you make sure that if you're gonna ask us for a letter, that you actually need the letter before we go ahead and spend time on writing those. I'm really hung up on thank yous right now, and I'm really trying to get us to encourage teenagers to write good thank you notes. No hero card necessary, no extravagant thing necessary, just a thank you card with a thank you for writing that letter of recommendation. So I'm really hitting that hard. Ask the seniors, they hate me right now. But I think that's a really important step in that. And then we provide a senior information sheet. It's like a fill in the blank resume that students can complete to give their recommender so that they kind of have a better idea of how to kind of answer some questions on that letter of recommendation. We always encourage students to give them at least 2 weeks. But if you're Corey Bowman, and Corey Bowman has 70 of our juniors right now, who he will also have them as seniors, even if half of those kids ask for a letter of recommendation, they all live in a 2-week window. That's a lot of letters for him to write. So if your child does know that they need one ahead of time, have them ask a little bit earlier than just 2 weeks. So different types of applications. Again, this is more kind of an educational piece. Institutional application is literally the one that's put out by an institution. So for example, if you're applying to the University of Wisconsin, they have their own system application, and it can be sent to Madison, and then you can share with several other Wisconsin campuses, Eau Claire, Stowe, Green Bay, all of them. But it's put out by the institution. It's on their website. The University of Minnesota, you'll hear them refer to the Golden Gopher application. St. Thomas has their own application. But it's really, if you were just planning on applying to 1 or 2 schools, and you know what schools they are, you can do that, and they're usually pretty quick, to be honest with you. Maybe require 1 or 2 essays, something like that. The Common App is a little bit longer up front because it requires a little bit more time, 45 minutes to an hour, of filling out all of your personal information. But you can share it with many campuses across the United States. So you'll find I'm not trying to get everyone to be a Golden Gopher here, but it's an easy school to use as an example. Many schools, like a Stowe, like a U of M, like a Madison, will take the Common App and their own institutional application. So a student might be like, okay, I'm gonna apply to St. Thomas, okay, Common App, great. Common App, awesome. Madison, great. So now I have 3 schools that take the same application. I can easily do the Common App, which is a little bit busy up front, but now I can share with a bunch of different campuses quite easily. So that's the Common Application. It really is what it says. It's just common. you write one essay and it's shared out to every campus. Some schools do have what's called supplements, which means that they say, all right, we're gonna read your essay, but we wanna know how you feel on a specific topic. So you might find that Boston College will ask something about the Jesuit faith or something like that, and then you have to answer a little question about that. Usually 150 to 300 words. But for some of those schools, students who are applying to 10 schools, and they might be kind of selective schools, I just had a student tell me he had we kept all of his essays. I've been reviewing his essays throughout this entire season. 30,000 words on one document of all his college essays. So this is kind of a better way to be efficient, but it can add up. The coalition application was kind of created about 5-6 years ago. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit because I think the coalition app is actually going away this fall. But the coalition app was meant to be kind of an accessible application that allows students to apply, do a lot of work up front, but it costs them nothing, which is really, really nice. So 2 states primarily adopted it. It was University of Washington schools and University of Texas schools. I just found out literally a week ago that Coalition is joining another college service to create a new application. We just don't know a lot of details about it. It literally just came out last week Thursday. Ooh, what happened?
Is it the projector?
Our laser. You're just talking about,
Seems like it's the projector.
yeah, it might be. Anything? Well, it looks like it's lighting up. This is a brand new projector, so we're learning. It sounds like the sound is. Okay, let me just try pushing this in. Or this. I'm gonna be quick, because I know you guys wanna go home. A lot of you have been here since 5:30, so I'm gonna keep moving a little bit. Just a quick note about the Common App. Common App actually is where teachers will upload their evaluations for this, and counselors will upload their evaluations to it. So it is kind of nice because kids can monitor the process of their application through the Common App. And so it is a very good tool. I'm not being paid by Common App, but I should be. But it is a very good tool.
Question,
Yeah.
back on the letters of recommendation, so if I'm applying to 5 schools, and they each want letters of recommendation, is the teacher only having to write it once and then submit it by emails 5 times, how does that?
If we do so, good question. If we do it on the Common App, we all just upload our stuff to their application on the Common App. It gets sent out to all those schools. If they do institutional applications, more than likely, they will have to put their recommender's name in their application, and it'll send an email to Mrs. Paul, the math teacher, who then she clicks on a link and she uploads her letter. So, but it's the industry standard to have one letter for all the schools. Like, that's kind of the going rate. If we had to write different letters for every school, we'll already,
No,
I'd still be writing letters. Yeah, we'll have to report that to our technical support people. Thank you. So one final note before we let you go. Again, I apologize for running long here. We really want to support your children. I thrive in this college planning piece. This is like my jam. I love it so much. It's a really, really fun time. But we really want it to be student driven. So there's an entire podcast about kind of dumb things parents have done on their child's behalf when applying to college, and then all these admission people report them back to the public. It's very funny. But I would just say that, if your child needs to write a letter to or an email to an admissions person, which they should do, those admissions people love that, help them write it, but don't write it for them. Don't send it from your email address, okay? Have them do it and just look it over with them or share it with them or copy it in. I sit down with students all the time and help them craft emails that they eventually send off from theirs. But it really is the next step to adulthood, so we want to make sure that they are kind of doing it. Again, we're just supporting characters. I always say this, if you can't do these steps on your own or with us supporting you, how are you going to do it at a campus 600 miles from here, where the cost is $62,000 a year? So we really want to make sure that we're kind of just, edging them towards some independence here in this process. I always want to make sure that you have 2 things. Your child is only your child on paper in this application process, right? We know them in a colorful way. But think about being an admissions person. We're getting 50,000 applications at the U of M. You're just who you are on paper. So we really want to encourage students to fill in all that extra information. I know that it's kind of a pain in the butt, but they ask you some questions that are optional. I always say they're never optional because they're trying to get more information from you and thoughts on who you are, and that brings your application to life. If your child has a specific family situation, they experienced something terrible during those 4 years that might have impacted their grades, or, maybe they've been dealing with a chronic illness that none of us know about, the more information you feel comfortable providing on that application, the better it is for that child, so I really encourage you to do that. Secondly is, there's not a single financial aid person that we've ever spoken to that hasn't said, have the family call us. If there's something specific that we missed in the FAFSA, because it is just a general document, we wanna talk to them about it. Just had a student the other day appeal their financial aid decision from a school out east, Sarah Lawrence, and that family got $7,000 more per year. So that basically bought them a year for free on the back end, because they just asked a second question. And it was because dad did a job change, but prior to that, he went from being a teacher to a principal, and prior to that, he'd been a teacher for years, making considerably less money. And so they hadn't had the time to build up their savings for their financial aid. So I really just would encourage you as a family to think about, if you have some nuance to your family history, don't hesitate to talk to those financial aid people. That's what they're there for. And I always think too, I think I went early on when I started as a counselor, I always thought it was a game about why the school would want to keep you out, and I've really switched my thinking on that. And I really think it's about, they're looking for reasons to keep you in. Going back to your ACT point, the ACT is not meant to be a tool to keep them out, it's meant to be a tool to find a reason to get them here on that campus. College is a business. They want customers. So they want to, accept as many people as they possibly can. So I really think that looking at it like that, as how can I fit that campus versus why are they gonna keep me out, is a really good way to kind of approach things. So, as I, again, don't be afraid to work with them. They wanna work with you. I think that's all I got. Thank you guys so much. We went way longer than we should have. Sorry about that.
We'll be around for any questions.